Kalen Voss stood bleeding in the center of the tower, a crude, Terran knife in his hand. As 5 armored mercenaries realized their high-tech sensors couldn't track a man moving with the desperation of Earth's heavy world evolution, his breath came in ragged volcanic heaves. Every time he pivoted, the floor tiles cracked under the sheer force of a skeletal structure designed to withstand 3G environments. The mercenaries hesitated, their energy blades flickering. Could a creature of flesh and bone truly outpace a targeting computer? If you want to see how a primitive heart beats in a world of cold circuits, subscribe and stay for the reckoning. We're just getting started. 11 days earlier, the Zenith Hub's air filtration system had been humming with the scent of synthetic ozone and expensive indifference. Kalen sat on a pressurized crate, watching the elite of the Luminari glide past like ghosts made of light. He was a slab of granite in a gallery of glass sculptures. He didn't belong here, but the credits were real, and his bank account was a hollowed-out ruin. Legate Voros approached, flanked by a woman whose skin shimmered with a faint, iridescent bioluminescence. This was Archon Selene. She didn't look at Kylan. She looked through him, her eyes scanning his dense muscle mass with the clinical boredom of a historian examining a chipped flint axe. "This is the Protector?" Selene asked, her voice a melodic chime that carried a razor edge of condescension. She gestured toward Kalen's belt, where a simple steel combat knife hung in a worn leather sheath. "Voros, I asked for security, not a museum exhibit." His species was still burning carbon for heat when we mastered the weave of the stars. What can a Terran offer that a kinetic barrier cannot? Kalen didn't stand. He simply looked up, his gaze heavy with the gravity of the world that had shaped him. "Your barriers run on batteries, Archon. My bones were forged in a world that tried to crush them every day." She laughed, a sound like falling crystals. Primitive pride. It's almost charming, in a tragic sort of way. Which meant the contract was signed. The transition to the solar aegis was a blur of velvet and silence. As the diplomatic banquet began, Kalen stood in the shadows of the great hall, a silent sentinel amidst the glowing finery of the Luminari. He felt the echo object, the heavy steel knife resting against his thigh, a constant grounding weight in this world of weightless light. The Luminari guards stood like statues, their ornate energy pikes glowing with a soft, decorative blue. They were beautiful. They were useless. When the power died, it didn't just flicker. It vanished, swallowed by a dampening field that turned the crystalline hall into a tomb. Panic is a universal language. The Luminari began to scream, their bioluminescence flickering in erratic, terrified pulses as the emergency bulkheads hissed shut. In the sudden dark, the sound of boots hitting the floor was the only warning. Do you think technology makes us stronger, or just more fragile when the lights go out? Let me know in the comments if you trust a shield or a shadow. Kalen didn't wait for his eyes to adjust. He felt the shift in the air, the displacement of oxygen as 3 figures moved through the chaos toward the Archon's dais. While the elite guards fumbled for activation switches on their dead pikes, Kalen was already moving. He wasn't fast like a bird. He was fast like a falling rock. The darkness didn't slow the human. In the void of the solar aegis, Selene watched Kalen move, her bioluminescent flickering providing just enough light to see the impossible. He didn't use a blade yet. He used the mass of his own body, striking with the density of a collapsing star. Each hit sounded like a hammer meeting an anvil. The saboteurs, despite their stealth suits, were being tossed aside like scrap metal. Kalen's hand found her wrist. His skin was scorching hot compared to her own cool, regulated temperature. "Move," he grunted, the word vibrating through her bones. They fled the dying ship in a cramped escape pod, hurtling toward the jagged, neon-soaked horizon of Rift Sector 9. For 3 days they lived in the shadows of the sector's rusted industrial spires. Kalen barely slept. He spent the hours sharpening his steel knife on a piece of discarded volcanic rock. The rhythmic shick-shick, a primitive heartbeat in the lawless silence. "You could have left me," Selene said one night, watching him work. "The contract is void. The hub is gone. Kalen didn't look up from the blade. I don't stay for the credits anymore, Archon. I stay because you're the only thing in this sector worth protecting. But the respite was a lie. Overseer Drax, the sector's local warlord, had seen the gold in Celine's skin and the bounty on her head. He cornered them in a crumbling observation tower, his mercenaries sealing every exit with high-frequency laser grids. "Stay behind me," Kalen whispered. "I am an Archon," she hissed, though her hands trembled. "I do not hide, then learn," he said, pressing the hilt of his steel knife into her palm. "Technology is a crutch. This is a choice. Grip it like you mean to survive." The bridge between the past and the present snapped shut, and now, back in the center of that blood-stained tower, the mercenaries closed in. Kalen ignored the searing burn of a kinetic bolt that had grazed his shoulder. He moved with a desperation born of Earth's crushing deep well gravity, his body a weapon that required no power source. He parried an energy pulse with a piece of reinforced plating, then closed the gap before the shooter could recalibrate. The lead mercenary swung a heavy vibro-axe. Kalen didn't dodge. He stepped into the arc, catching the man's wrists. The mercenary's armor whined under the pressure of Kalen's grip. With a guttural roar, Kalen heaved, throwing the armored giant into the laser grid. The smell of ozone filled the air as the grid flickered and died. Celine didn't wait. As a second attacker lunged, she didn't reach for a shield generator that wasn't there. She lunged forward, mirroring the brutal efficiency she had watched Kalen practice for days. The steel knife, the primitive toy, found the gap in the mercenary's neck plating. The tower went silent. The predator had been hunted, and the prey had found its teeth. Weeks later, the crystalline spires of the Luminari capital sparkled under a new sun. The coup had been crushed. High Inquisitor Vesper defeated not by superior tech, but by the relentless, unpredictable spirit of a man who refused to break. Celine stood on the royal balcony, the heavy steel knife now mounted in a case of translucent diamond at her side. She looked at Kalen, no longer seeing a relic, but a partner. The new alliance wasn't built on shared tech, but on shared scars. She reached out, her iridescent hand resting on his scarred forearm. Below them, a city of light finally understood the strength of the dark. The knife was no longer a tool of the past. It was a promise for the future. What's the one thing you keep close that reminds you of who you really are when everything else fails? Come back tomorrow for the next chronicle.